one of the world's biggest diplomatic deadlocks, security flashpoints, and humanitarian crisis. It takes everyone's hard work, beginning with real efforts from these two. The Kim-Trump summit, a pivotal moment, a possible game changer.
Catch our special program from Singapore, the DPRK-US summit, only on World Insight with Tian Wei.
The world is changing fast, taking all our lives with it. But we can change it too, by seeking answers to problems through discussions and debates. On World Insight, I ask direct questions to real people in the know, seek genuine answers, but respect diverse perspectives. Our live global debates tackle the most critical issues head-on. World Insight with Tian Wei go beyond the headlines.
Welcome back. You're still watching World Insight with me, Tian Wei, our special program coming to you on the DPRK-US summit from Singapore. Earlier, we had 2 rounds of discussion about exactly what this document meant and how different sides would react to that. About the Chinese perspective, earlier I talked to Mr. Teng Jianqun from Beijing. Let's listen in to what he has to say. Now I'm joined by Teng Jianqun, who is in my Beijing studio. He's the director of the Center for Arms Control of the China Institute of International Studies. Mr. Teng, welcome to our program.
Thank you.
I'm sure you'll be monitoring the situation very closely. Good to have you, sir. One of the things people talk about is complete. Does it mean complete, verifiable, irreversible denuclearization? Your thought?
Yeah, this is a very important arrangement by the summit. I'm sure the two sides have already gave some compromise in this regard. I think it's not easy for DPRK to give such a commitment, and it's not easy for U.S. to accept such a commitment. Why they committed to the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, the United States also committed to give security guarantee to DPRK. So this is a very important arrangement. However, this is only the beginning for the countries concerned to have denuclearized the peninsula.
Right. When you talk about security concern, 2 things that President Trump said in his press briefing. One is the United States will stop war games with South Korea. That's a big news. Well, of course, he didn't give exactly the time frame of it. But on the other hand, he said the United States would not necessarily immediately withdraw troops from South Korea, even though that's what U.S. intends to do eventually. What do you make of this combination?
Yeah, this is the first step to suspend all the military drills. Actually, if you look at the evolution of the situation in the Korean Peninsula during the first round of a 6-party talk, the delegation from DPRK gave such a condition or requirement to suspend all the military exercise by ROK and by the United States. This is a security concern from DPRK side. So the commitment from the United States to suspend all the military drills in Korean Peninsula will give a very positive, driving force to the commitment carried by the DPRK. I mean, to have the comprehensive denuclearization of the peninsula.
Well, at the same time, he talked about his relations with China. He claimed Chinese leader is a wonderful leader and is leading a wonderful country, and he's going to call Chinese President Xi Jinping at the time when he wrapped up his press conference in Singapore. What do you think, though, has been U.S.-China's relation and its interactions concerning DPRK? After all, the U.S. is talking about a new DPRK-US relationship.
Yeah, I think the relations between the United States and China in relating to the DPRK nuclear issue has been a very good example for the cooperation in security in international affairs. So I think Donald Trump gave a high appreciation to the contribution of Chinese government and the Chinese leaders. I think this is a very important part for China to continue the support to the denuclearization and peaceful momentum in the Korean Peninsula.
Mr. Tang, at the same time, sanction is a big issue. Of course, he said that no sanctions will be removed as long as denuclearization has not begun. But, you know, sanctions are coming in so many different categories. It could be unilateral sanction, it could be multilateral sanction, it could be also UN sanction. So we don't know exactly what he's referring to from the U.S. perspective. And as a result, how China will look at the sanction issue. After all, U.S. and the DPRK already have what they call a historic agreement.
You're right. There are at least two kinds of sanctions. One is from the United Nations Security Council. You know, after DPRK did the nuclear test, you know, the UN Security Council adopted several resolutions to impose sanctions against the DPRK. And the other is the unilateral some individual countries sanction against the DPRK. For example, during the briefing today, Donald Trump mentioned he has at least 200 sanctions in his hand, and if the momentum stopped or any obstacles to go ahead, the United States will impose more sanctions against DPRK. So sanction is only a very important part for the denuclearization of Korean Peninsula. In terms of China's contribution, of course, China has abided by all the resolutions adopted by UN Security Council, and China also, you know, has considered the humanitarian assistance to DPRK. This is actually a coin with two sides.
It is a coin of two sides. We have been hearing from humanitarian groups that over the years, particularly recent time, that the U.S. has been putting a unilateral sanctions and been punishing those who are not necessarily follow suit. And there has been a lot of fear by some of the international community to donate to the humanitarian groups to help DPRK. Mr. Tang, do you think that things will change soon?
Yeah, I think after the suspension of the U.S. sanction against DPRK, the situation in the Korean Peninsula will be changed greatly. I'm sure any international organizations or other countries will feel more free to give humanitarian assistance to DPRK. So this is actually a big change for the Korean Peninsula. I mean, the suspension or the stop of U.S. sanction against DPRK will give the international cooperation more chance and more opportunity to give more humanitarian assistance to DPRK.
But Mr. Tang, I mean, all of us probably, covering the story for 20 years, you researching about a topic for more than 25 years, we have seen something similar. We've been there, done that, heard it.
Yeah.
Will this deal really become a serious deal?
Yeah,
that's a question mark.
Yeah, this is really a serious deal between the United States and DPRK, because some backgrounds I'd like to mention here. The number one is the situation in Northeast Asia has been changed a little bit. Second is the politics in the United States, especially when President Donald Trump became the U.S. president. He would like to do something. He would like to keep his promise as he mentioned during the campaign in 2016. So I think some changes have been taking place in this region. So we should have a new vision, new idea to deal with the nuclear issue in Korean Peninsula.
Wow, I love that. New vision, new ideas. What exactly, Mr. Chung, you are talking about? Is there some new actions that can be interacting with the visions and the ideas? What are the things that you come to your mind immediately?
First, I should say after this summit, the two sides have already reached some consensus, and the political trust between the two sides has also been, intensified. This is a very important step. I think, Donald Trump and the DPRK leader felt very easy during the summit. This is actually a development of the personal relations between the two leaders, and which will give a very important impact on the coming arrangement. For example, Secretary of State Pompeo and the Security Advisor Bolton will do their homework soon. I think this is actually a foundation for the officials in each government to carry out the the idea or the plan to go ahead.
Well, when John Bolton and Mike Pompeo do their homework together, nobody knows what's going to be the outcome. But for now, Mr. Tong, what a pleasure to have you. Before we go, final question very briefly from you. How do you think history will judge today?
You mean the summit?
Yes.
Yeah, I think this is really a historic summit. After at least 60 years of hostility between the two countries, this time the two leaders, I think are very brief to have such a summit because of the domestic politics. For decades, the U.S. leaders, especially after the ending of Cold War, were very hesitant to have such a summit. But this time, I'm sure the two leaders, I mean President Donald Trump and the DPRK leader Jong, are very brief to go ahead to have such a face-to-face dialogue. This is very important for the peaceful solution of Korean Peninsula's issue.
I guess we should congratulate all of us.
Yeah.
All at the same time. A lot of people over the years have been making so much effort for something important to happen. For now, Teng Jianqun, thank you so much, sir, for being with us and all your hard work throughout the years as well. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You're still watching World Insight with me, Tian Wei, as we bring you the latest analysis of Kim-Trump summit in Singapore. Stay tuned. We'll be back after this.